The sun's out, bums are out, and hopefully your pubes are not out. Also, flip-flop season is upon us, and you're out here with those post-pandemic toenails. Don't worry, our friends at Manscaped have you covered. They just launched their 4th-generation performance package and their Shears 2.0 nail grooming kit. Join Manscaped movement by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using promo code DTR.
Aaron Donald creates the fumble. Dog goes crashing into the end zone.
It is intercepted by Jalen Ramsey.
Robert Wood, touchdown. Picked off by John Johnson. Touchdown, Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air.
Henderson with a good run and a first down. Still on his feet. Touchdown, Van Jefferson.
Everett in stride. Wow. To the end zone. Kickmakers. LA will play for the Lombardi.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Downtown Rams podcast. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me as, wait a minute. Alexis is unable to make it today. So I have my old co-host from the very beginning, Blaine Grisak. He's joining me on none other than the episode 360, which is really weird because we just did a full 360 going back to the original co-host. How the hell are you, Blaine? Welcome back, man.
Hey Jake, we got the OG squad back. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
That we do. I don't know. Alexis will be back at some point, so this isn't forever, guys. But I definitely want to get my guy Blaine on here. First off, he's been awesome. Just done so much just for me, my career, and on top of that, just the fact that what he's doing over at downtownrams.com is just so impressive. He's brought on 2 new incredible writers that we're really excited about for our draft and for our fantasy football aspect of our website. Feeling it's going to be a big year, and I think a lot of it is because we have you at the helm, man. So happy to have you on.
Well, thanks for the kind words, Jake. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I just echo exactly what you said. This is probably I've been on and off kind of doing the site for Downtown Rams, and now back at it full time now, past since like the Super Bowl, so 4 or 5 months now. And this is probably the best I've ever felt about the direction of the site. So I'm really excited about where we're going. Have Chalk from Undroppables doing fantasy for us, and Pat Pryor coming over from Blitzalytics to do the to be our lead NFL draft analyst. And I'm really excited about the guys that we have on board, and think we can do something special.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. But let's dive into at least we'll start off a little light because I think we're going to get into some heavy stuff. Obviously, anytime we talk Rams ball, I think we could talk for hours. That's been proven. Just go back to our louder milk.
Yeah. Louder milk.
But no, in all honesty, man, I want to talk about the uniforms, helmets, real quick because we got kind of. I mean, for you and I, it was the scare. For some people, they were really hyped about them. The white helmets, the potential white uniform, it looks like that's not going to be the case because we just saw the jersey, and obviously they don't sell, knockoff uniform pants to fans. So it looks like it's going to be a knockoff jersey from what, some people were saying. Blaine, what are your thoughts on this? Because when I first saw that thing, I was just like, oh no. Like,
Yeah. Let's get some background a little bit. So Tutu Atwell today goes on his Instagram Live. That guy needs to stay away from Instagram. Like, he posts a picture of the Rams playbook like his first week at OTAs, and now he's giving Rams fans a heart attack. He needs to not know that Rams fans do not take uniform talk lightly. So he goes on Instagram Live and posts this video of these white Rams uniforms and white Rams helmets, and has Rams Twitter up in a frenzy. If he creates that much chaos during the regular season, we'll have a 2021 offensive rookie of the year on our hands, which would be good. But anyway, I was not a fan of the white. I mean, my thoughts on this. The Rams they decided to go with bone, which is very unique. And I know some Rams fans don't like it, say it looks like muddy water or whatever, but I love the bone uniforms, and I think going to a more white look, you have 2 options for alternate jerseys, and if you go to white, it's just very uncreative in my opinion. The white helmets were I didn't. I guess I'd have to see them on the field. I didn't love them. I didn't hate them. They're different, that's for sure. Especially next year when teams can use a couple different shells with their helmets. So honestly, these white uniforms are like exactly what I would want a black uniform set to look like. But hopefully these are just knockoffs. I'm kind of on the mindset now. Let's just wait. What happens happens. We just need the Rams to release these things.
I totally agree with you. I still, from what I was told, I still believe it's going to be the sole, the yellow. I think we could get that orangey yellow. That is a potential. I don't necessarily think it'll happen, but I think it's possible. But yeah, I agree with you. And, you mentioned the black uniforms, and I've also heard that in 2022. And again, I don't know if this is 100%, unless the Rams announce it as such, whatever. But, with the black uniforms, I agree with you, having that blue and yellow, I think definitely made a lot of sense with the black. If you are a fan of the LA Lakers, which I know, Blaine, you are not, you will know about the LA Knights jerseys, or maybe you'll know about them even if you don't like the Lakers. Either way, they had these cool LA Knights uniforms, which incorporated the yellow and the purple. I know everyone says gold, but it's really yellow. I mean, let's be real here. But, it incorporated those with the black. And I felt like just, incorporating the blue and yellow with the black would look really nice. So, they have, for anybody that says there's no black in their uniform, there's no black in their logo, black doesn't make any sense. You can go back to 1937 when they had the black and red uniforms. That was the first uniform set that they had. So the idea that black doesn't make any sense is actually wrong, because while everyone seems to think that it is yellow and blue that was the origin, it's actually the black and red.
Yeah, going all the way back to Cleveland. Yeah, I just think like white. It's such a cop out. You have bone. These are like the jerseys that we saw today are essentially the bone uniforms, but just white. Like it's so uncreative. And if those end up being the uniforms, I'm going to be so disappointed. I mean, I'll probably end up buying one because I'm a sucker for New Jersey, so it'll likely happen. But they wouldn't be my first choice. I think it just like Soul just makes so much sense. I mean, you go back to the 50s, the 1951 championship. I mean, those were the jerseys Rams wore. This is what the 70th anniversary. Yeah, if I'm doing my math right, 70th anniversary of that championship. So I just think it just makes so much sense to go to you use that soul and make that your primary like color for a jersey. I think that'd be so cool. And like, as I made a point on Twitter last week, that the Rams would be the only team in the NFL with a yellow primary color jersey. I mean, the Washington football team doesn't have a yellow jersey, which I think would be so cool for them. Same for the Kansas City Chiefs. Like a yellow jersey for the Chiefs would be amazing as well, I think. The Chargers obviously don't have a yellow jersey. The Packers don't. I think they've done a fan yellow jersey, but not like an actual player yellow jersey. But yeah, I think just like the Rams would have two very unique jersey colors in the bone and the yellow that other teams don't have. And honestly, like that's what I'm hoping for. I'm crossing my fingers for that yellow, that soul. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I guess I know some fans want to go back to that 1970s look and have that white jersey. I mean, the Rams haven't worn that white jersey since they won Super Bowl 34. So I can see some fans wanting that, but yeah, my preference is yellow.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And, kind of going into everything, because, I think we've talked enough about the uniforms. Otherwise, we're going to be writing all these articles about uniform kits in 2 seconds. Or
don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want to become that. So, what you see is what you get. We're going to give you Rams content, and we will touch a little bit on the uniforms, but let's talk a little bit about who's going to be wearing the uniforms. And, I mean, we've had the pleasure of, talking. I mean, when Matthew Stafford became a Ram, we were talking that night. We've had the pleasure of talking, about the draft, and, we've covered all sorts of stuff, but let's touch a little bit on, because I think, the addition of the fantasy football realm to our site, I want to touch a little bit on who you think and kind of just go through like, position players, key players in fantasy, guys for the Rams that you think makes sense to target, where to target. If you have any, I'll give my thoughts as well. But kind of fantasy, kind of a quick outlook on the Rams roster going into this fantasy season.
Yeah, so I guess let's start with the quarterback. I mean, I think Stafford has to be a target in fantasy. I don't know how you don't target Matthew Stafford in Sean McVay's offense. I mean, you would target Matthew Stafford if he was still with the Detroit Lions, but I think he has to be even more of a target now. Like, I don't think he's necessarily that quarterback that you take early, but I think he's one of those quarterbacks that you can take in the mid to later rounds of hopefully in that area if he's still available. I think he's going to be kind of in that. He won't go in the first tier, obviously. I don't know if he'd go in that like second tier of quarterbacks, but if he's there, still in that like late third, early fourth tier of quarterbacks, like I think I think you need to jump on that. Like Stafford, people are talking about him having the potential for a 5,000-yard season. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I still think he could have a really good year with 4,500 plus yards and 30 plus touchdowns, which would be a very good fantasy season for a quarterback. So I do like Stafford. Wide receivers wise, I think wide receivers is super interesting, and I would be so interested to hear your take on this, because obviously you have Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods as your two. Like, obviously, if you're going to take Rams wide receivers, you're taking Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Like, those are the top two guys. But I think in 2018, we saw that the Rams offense was capable of supporting three wide receivers, which isn't something that you see very often. From a fantasy perspective, you don't see very many offenses able to carry three wide receivers. But I mean, before Cooper Kupp got hurt, you had Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and Brandon Cooks all as top 30 wide receivers, and Cooper Kupp finished, I think, it is wide receiver. I think I saw with Chalk with this last night. Actually, I think he finished wide receiver 41, and he missed a good amount of that season because he was injured. Like if Cooper Kupp's able to stay healthy, he probably finishes in the top 30. So I'm very interested to see if the Rams offense is able to carry three wide receivers and who that third wide receiver is. I don't know. Is it Deshaun Jackson? Does Deshaun Jackson take on a pretty big role? Is it Van Jefferson? Does he take a huge jump in year two? With Rams after being drafted last year? Is it Tutu Atwell? And I think you look at the tight ends, like, is it Tyler Higbee that makes that huge jump? Like, I think the Rams offense is capable of carrying three wide receivers, and it's just, I think, trying to find who that third wide receiver is. And then from a running back perspective, I mean, Akers is obviously really popular. I'm not the biggest Akers fan in fantasy. I think fans are expecting him to take this huge jump in year two, and while I see him eclipsing 1,000 yards, I think there's so many people that forget that Darrell Henderson exists and he's very efficient. Like, the Rams aren't just going to like not play Darrell Henderson, especially like with both players have an injury history. I mean, if you can sort of manage both of their workloads a little bit, like, I think that only benefits their run game. I mean, Akers dealt with his rib cartilage injury at the beginning of last year, had an ankle injury late. Henderson also had an ankle late, I believe it was an ankle. So I think Rams are going to try to preserve them throughout the year. I mean, a running game is only going to help Matthew Stafford. If you can keep those two healthy, that's a really good thing. So I don't think the Rams are going to take Cam Akers and just run him into the ground like they did Todd Gurley. So I think Akers is still a guy that you target in maybe the second or in definitely the third round, if you say, but I don't necessarily think Cam Akers is a guy that you take in the first round.
Yeah, I agree with you. We were having this conversation the other day. It might have actually been yesterday. I don't know. The times kind of just they smack together, I feel like.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, because Akers is somebody I'm high on, but not as high on him as I guess the consensus, because I did the projection, the series on my YouTube channel. I have 230 carries, 1,155 yards, 9 rushing touchdowns. I added 34 receptions for 341 yards and a receiving touchdown. Don't get me wrong, that's really good, but is that first round good? I don't think so. And to me, I think he's a second round running back, but I think he's a second round running back because there's just not a lot of go-to running backs in this league. And he's going in the second round because I don't think a lot of people, like you said, realize how efficient Henderson's been.
Yeah, I mean, I think on when I was on your YouTube channel last, we talked about it. We talked how, analytically, like Darrell Henderson is really good, and he, like, analytics wise, he kind of measures exactly where some of the top NFL running backs are. I mean, according to DVOA, he was the fourth best running back last year, which is kind of crazy. I mean, I don't think he's that guy that's going to carry the ball 15 to 20 times per game, which is why he's not the fourth best running back in the NFL. But he's very efficient when he gets his opportunities, and that's what the Rams want. They want Akers to be that top guy, and they want Henderson to be able to come in and kind of be that change of pace and be able to relieve Henderson. And I think something that is also very important here is that, in order, and I'm going to write an article on this later this week, actually, is that for Akers to take that next step, like, it's more than just running the football. Like, I don't think people realize, like, how important of a role Malcolm Brown played last year, because, on third downs and third and longs, the Rams were able to put Malcolm Brown in pass protection, and Akers just wasn't ready for that yet. And he wasn't very good when he got the opportunities in pass pro, at least in what I remember seeing. So in order for him to take that next step, he's going to have to get better in pass protection, because if he doesn't, he's not going to be on the field on third downs in passing situations. That's going to be a guy like Henderson, who has 3 years in the offense and more experience doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been really impressed with Henderson in pass pro, because I don't feel like he was really ever used in that way at Memphis, or at least not like I would have expected him to. So I mean, Akers needs to get better at that. I think Akers also needs to get better at holding on to the football. He had a really costly fumble at the goal line in week 17, which, we look back on now and it's just like, oh, well, the Rams won that. And even if they lost, the Bears lost. But hindsight's 2020. And at the time, the Rams were in somewhat of a tight game, because Gerald Everett dropped a touchdown from John Wolford. And then you had, that happening. And it's like, I do need to see more fine tuning of his game, but I do really like Cam Akers. That's not, entirely hating on him. It's just being realistic. Whereas Henderson, biggest issue with him is he's got to stay healthy. He's been hurt each year, freak injuries, albeit, but has been hurt. So if he stays healthy, I mean, Cam Akers had a hard time staying healthy last year with a high ankle sprain. Like you mentioned, the cartilage injury, which is just a freak injury. I'm not going to call that injury prone, but I think as long as Henderson stays healthy, he's the running back to 100% make sure you own, because Akers is in a tier with a bunch of running backs that are in that same conversation. Like, he's in the same tier group I'm seeing drafted as a Jonathan Taylor, as a Jacobs, what have you. But Henderson, that tier, to me, I think he dominates that tier, because there's no more Malcolm Brown. And while I really like Xavier Jones, and I think he has an opportunity, there's going to need to be an injury here or two for Xavier Jones to cut into those carries. And for me, if Henderson stays healthy, he's got the best ability out of everybody that's going around that same tier group. And yeah, I'd argue him and Nyheim Hines are kind of one and the same in a sense. I think he can have kind of that similar role as Hines, but I also think he's probably a better go-to back that can, take the brunt of a lot of carries over Hines. And on top of that, Blaine, Marlon Mack is back in Indy. So Hines isn't going to necessarily 100% be that change of pace go-to backup, whereas Henderson is number 2, no matter how well Xavier Jones starts off his preseason or training camp. Henderson's going to be number 2. And honestly, I don't know if he's necessarily a number 2. I honestly kind of look at them as a 1A, 1B. And Akers has the nod now, but if, what's to say he doesn't all of a sudden, come off struggling like he did at the beginning of the season, and then Henderson takes over. I'm not entirely ruling that out. So I would say Henderson is 100% the back that I would own. Obviously depending, Blaine, on what kind of fantasy type of league you're doing, and there's all sorts of wonky ones out there. I mean, I've even seen 3 quarterback leagues. I didn't know they existed, but here we are. It really, depending on it, Henderson makes a lot of sense to go out and actually not just roster, but prioritize rostering him because of where he's going. I've seen him at 149 ADP, and I think that's really good value for a guy that isn't necessarily the backup, and on top of that, I would also say there's some really good value. You can get him probably at the end of redrafts. Dynasty should be a no-brainer. You can honestly reach on this guy in Dynasty, and that is Jacob Harris, because I'm not 100% sure Tyler Higbee's the guy, because what I mean by that, Blaine, and you'll probably be able to elaborate a little bit more, but Tyler Higbee, I'm not 100% convinced the Rams don't off in the at the trade deadline, because I had a sneaky suspicion. We've been talking about him for a while via text. I did notice you just picked him up. You picked him back up in fantasy. Bryson Hopkins. The Rams are either being quiet about him because they truly are not high on him, or they're being quiet about him because they truly do have a plan with him, and they're keeping it under wraps, and they're not trying to, show their hand. I don't know where they are on that, but it's really interesting, because what they could seemingly do is, if they liked his development enough and they like Jacob Harris enough and they have Munt as their blocking tight end, they could trade Higbee away at the deadline, free up some money, and you free up that money next year. I think it's about $9 million in cap, $8 million, around that. That's going to be money towards bringing back Darius Williams, which I think is going to be a priority for them.
Yeah, this is where I'll probably disagree with you a little bit. I just don't think you can possibly trade Tyler Higbee. I just don't. You have two veteran guys in that tight end room. You have Tyler Higbee and you have Johnny Munt. And as much as I love Johnny Munt, he's not the receiving threat that Tyler Higbee is. If the Rams had been able to keep Gerald Everett, then I think maybe you consider it. But I don't think it's feasible right now to not cut him, but trade Tyler Higbee, especially So I don't know how many Rams fans I've been listening to it, but I've been listening to the Flying Coach podcast with Sean McVay and Peter Schrager over the last month and a half now, and it was really interesting. They had Arthur Smith on a couple weeks ago, and towards the end of the podcast, McVay was talking about putting his players in the best situations and using 12 personnel and all this, and he was running through the tight ends, and he mentioned in order Tyler Higbee, Johnny Munt, and Jacob Harris. So I don't think I don't know if he purposely left out Bryson Hopkins, but to mention the guy you just drafted over a guy that's been in your system for a whole year, I think says a lot.
Yeah.
So right now, I don't know what Bryson Hopkins' future is on this team. I mean, the Rams used a fourth rounder on him last year, and they come around this year and they take another tight end in the fourth round. So I don't know if he just didn't develop like they wanted him to, if they wanted Jacob Harris just, as another tight end to have in the room, to add some depth there, because Johnny Muntz probably might be gone after this year. He's only on, I think he's on a restricted free agency tender right now. So I just don't think you can trade Higbee. He's the most experienced guy in the room, and as much as I like Jacob Harris, listen, it's difficult for tight ends normally to come in and start on day one and make an impact. You don't see it very often from the tight end position. You don't see rookies come in and make that impact like you see at other positions. It takes them a couple of years. And so not only is Jacob Harris coming in and making the already difficult transition to the NFL, he's doing it at the tight end position. And not only that, he's completely switching positions because he was a wide receiver at UCF. So you and I have kind of brought up the comparison between him and Darren Waller. And while Darren Waller struggled with some substance issues early in his career, it took him 4 years to finally go off. And I don't think it'll take 4 years for Jacob Harris to go off simply because of those substance issues that Waller had. But, it might take him 2 years. It might take him 3 years. I don't see Jacob Harris coming in and having this huge impact on day one. I mean, the Rams like their veteran players. They're built to win right now. You're not trading a guy like Tyler Higbee, who's a veteran player, has experience in the system, is a reliable target for Matthew Stafford at the trade deadline. And then I wouldn't write off Johnny Munt as an option either. Like I said, he's a veteran guy. He's been here a couple of years. I mean, he's not going to be the receiving threat, but if the Rams run 12 personnel, I guarantee you that it's going to be Johnny Munn out there, not Bryson Hopkins or Johnny or Jacob Harris. And it's going to be interesting, I think, this year just to see how often those two guys play, because as we saw last year, the Rams only activated 3 tight ends on game day. Most weeks you had Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, and Johnny Munn as the 3 active tight ends. And so if the Rams do that this year, that's going to leave Bryson Hopkins or Jacob Harris off the active roster most game days. And I don't know who that is. Will that be matchup dependent? Will that be Jacob Harris, we're going to redshirt you this year because you're switching positions? Who knows? But I think as far as tight ends go, like Tyler Higbee's the guy. I don't see him going anywhere this year, even though it would open up some cap for them going into next year. And I think Johnny Munn is a veteran presence that a lot of fans, I think, really forget and don't realize, I think, how important he is in the run game and in blocking situations.
Oh, no, I agree with you there. What I was thinking is if like Higbee struggles, and then all of a sudden you have an emerging Jacob Harris, you have, potentially whatever they have in Bryson Hopkins, and then you have Munt. And, I think with Munt, he still has his athleticism. He's just not as, like, coming out of Oregon, man, he looked like he could have been like a 3rd round pick. And then he tore his ACL twice. So he still can, you saw that play against the Bears last year. He had like a 40-yard catch. Like, he still has something there. And like, if he was like a volume targeted tight end, I mean, I don't know if there's much different between him and like, I mean, even the guy over, with Dallas, Blake Jarwin. Like, I don't see like a ton that Blake Jarwin has that like Johnny Munt doesn't, but Munt plays a completely different role. And, Higbee's been, big for them. I mean, I was not arguing, but I was making the argument on Twitter. It's crazy, but, statistically, Tyler Higbee might be the greatest tight end in Rams history. I mean, that's the funny thing. When you think about it, it's actually close.
Yeah, the Rams don't have the good history at the tight end position like they do the running back position, unfortunately. I mean, when you think of Rams great tight ends, you think of Lance Kendricks, Pete Holohan, and Tyler Higbee. Like, it's not a great list whatsoever. But yeah, I just like, even if Higbee's dealt with injuries now, he dealt with injuries last year. He wasn't very active to start OTAs, which is fine. Like, your vets don't have to be active during OTAs. Robert Woods, I don't think he was there, but he wasn't taking every single rep. Like, it just doesn't happen. The Rams like to give their guys some rest, especially at this point in the offseason. But yeah, I just I don't want to come off as a Jacob Harris hater, because I really do like his athleticism. I mean, his athleticism is off the charts, and if he hits his potential, like, he could be a really special player. Like, I have no doubts about that. So I just want to make myself very clear. Like, I am not a Jacob Harris hater. I just, like, when it comes to year one and him as a rookie, Sean McVay likes him, so I could be very wrong about this. If Sean McVay likes him, maybe he gives him some opportunity. I mean, McVay was raving about him in OTAs. So if he's got McVay likes him, he gets that opportunity, then, I mean, this might be my second most wrong take with Downtown Rams. Right next to Robert Woods is the worst. Is the first mistake in the Sean McVay area. It'll be right next to that. But I just don't really see a way on the field for Jacob Harris, at least very, very, very much. He might see some action like Bryson Hopkins did last year a little bit, but I just don't see that consistency. I don't see him on the field consistently.
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing, we've talked about this, and it's like, tight ends, it's hard. And this is why, like, when you look at like my Jacob Harris projection, I mean, I don't have one, because as much as I love him, I just can't project a rookie tight end coming in. And I mean, I don't know. People are drafting like Kyle Pitts really high in their fantasy. I would stay away from that in a redraft. I'm not 100% Kyle Pitts is going to have the year you're talking about, because there are guys who are getting picked in the 4th round, like Kyle Pitts, where you're like, okay, but if you pick a guy in the 4th round like that, he needs to have like 800 yards and like more than 10 touchdowns. And while, Matt Ryan is going to give him that opportunity, like there's other mouths to feed there, and I mean, he's by giving him the opportunity, like Matt Ryan's good enough to give him the football. I'm just saying you have Hayden Hurst there. You have Russell Gage. You have Calvin Ridley. They got your guy, Frank Darby. I mean, they have all sorts of guys there. They just added Cordarrelle Patterson free agency. When you look at the Rams, I mean, they have way more than that. So it's going to be really hard to get Harris involved. And I know they're going to probably force his hand in the red zone. But I mean, yeah, I agree with you in a sense. You can't project a rookie tight end to go off because, like you said, it took a while for Waller. But I mean, it takes a while for guys that are built to be tight ends. It takes a while for guys that are told, people tell us straight up, this guy's NFL ready. What the hell is an NFL ready tight end? Because I've seen guys that look the part, they play the part, they have amazing careers in college, and they come in the NFL, and it's like a whole different position. And here's the thing that needs to be said. When you're a tight end, you're essentially a wide receiver and an offensive lineman mixed. It's not as simple as plug and play. And that's why we have to completely get rid of that.
Who's your favorite tight end in the NFL?
George Kittle.
Yes. And George Kittle is so dominant. I mean, the Rams play him twice a year. His rookie season, 515 yards. The next year, he goes off for almost 1,400.
Which was nuts for a 5th round pick.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jacob Harris went in the 4th round, which is very similar to a 5th rounder. Like, if Jacob Harris has a George Kittle type year, I mean, that'd be good, but like, and that'd be more than what way more than what I'm expecting of him in year 1. But the point there is like, even as a rookie, it took time for George Kittle to get that experience and get comfortable. And when he did in year 2, he went off.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad like we kind of built that together because, it's not a knock on Jacob Harris, and I don't change my stance. Bottom line is, if they give him the reps, he's going to succeed. I just think that they're going to bring things in a little slow. He's probably going to get more of a run than Van Jefferson did last year, though. I will say that. I think they're going to, if he has more than 200 yards, I won't be surprised. If he has close to 400 yards, I won't be surprised. If Higbee goes down, oh my God. Because that's my thing, is that at the very worst, this is somebody that is just going to get playing time and not do anything with it. Do you
think like if Higbee got hurt, do you think just McVay would go to like 93% 11 personnel again and essentially use Woods and Kupp as like another blocker and throw maybe like I could see them still just giving most of the snaps to Johnny Munt and utilizing Woods and Kupp in their blocking ability as a second tight end.
Yeah, I mean, I could absolutely see that. It's very rare do you get a guy like, Travis Kelce, who I believe got hurt in his rookie year. So, I mean, he only played like one game. I think he got hurt on like the first play, right? 2014, though, he had 67 catches, 862 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, he's been a model of consistency since, and that was a huge, moment, but like that doesn't really happen. So, I mean, I'll be honest with you. If Higbee were to go down, and I think it's entirely realistic to assume a guy that's had some injury concerns in the past could go down with an injury in a 17-game season. And if that were the case, then I think the door opens wide open for Jacob Harris. I think it opens up for Johnny Munt. I think it opens up for Bryson Hopkins. And I think it's kind of just, they'll probably go with a running back by committee. Instead, it'll be a tight end by committee. They'll go with 11 personnel, like you said. I don't think they'll put an emphasis on having 2 tight ends out there because they're down, and I think they'll, like, the best man that comes out, the guy that wins, I think will get the majority of the reps. And I won't put it past Johnny Munt if he can play like, he has in the past as a blocker, but if he can play like he did, that one play against the Bears, if he has shown the ability to actually be a receiver, Like I said, there's not a ton separating him from like Blake Jarwin. And so, I think it'd be really interesting because they're actually all of a sudden really deep at tight end. And I know they've had guys in the past, but now it really feels like they're really deep now, having that fourth guy. All right, guys, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about Manscaped for a little bit, and then we will get back to the show. The world is starting to open, and the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped is here to get you ready. Inside, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, plus 2 free gifts, Performance Boxer Briefs, and Shed travel bag. Talk about a world-class dismount into a post-quarantine world. This package is the perfect package for your package and peak performance in whatever sport you desire. The brand new Lawnmower 4.0 is here to take the podium. This 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction on and off switch can engage a travel lock, and gives you the ability to turn 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Did I mention this trimmer is waterproof too? Michael Phelps is drooling just thinking about the possibilities. This package also comes with the Weed Whacker to chop your worst weeds up top in both your nose and ear. This tool is a lock to take home the gold in the biathlon. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses a 9,000 RPM motor powered 360-degree rotary dual blade system. This nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. After trimming your pubes, show them some sportsmanship with Manscaped's liquid formulations. The Crop Preserver ball deodorant and the Crop Reviver ball toner are the key to feeling victorious this year. But as always, get 20% off and free shipping with our promo code DTR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the promo code DTR at manscaped.com. Escape the shrubs and weeds this summer and shine with Manscaped. Now back to our show.
Yeah, and I guess so. Like just to bring us full circle on episode 360 of the Downtown Rams podcast.
Nice.
Are you? I mentioned when I was kind of breaking things down that the Rams offense, it has that potential to sustain 3 wide receivers. Are you thinking that third wide receiver is a tight end, or do you think somebody behind a Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp is that the third wide receiver that can be sustained from a fantasy perspective?
Well, I got to go with Van. I just think Van Jefferson does a fantastic job of getting open. I mean, he's just such a violent route runner. Controlled aggression is the big name of the game for him. And as long as he gets open, he's going to have an opportunity. And to be honest, if you don't get open, Stafford's going to throw it to you. But, I think they're really going to want to get him and get his feet wet because last year that didn't really happen. It happened early on. But then, he had a stretch where he had no catches and maybe one target. And so,
do you think that if the Rams are going to have 3 guys in the top 40 wide receivers again, like they did in 2018, is that Woods, Kupp, and Van Jefferson, or is it Woods, Kupp, and Tyler Higbee?
I think it's Van because I have my projections. I have Van at 44 receptions, 611 yards, 10 touchdowns. I have Tyler Higbee at 48 receptions, 528 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So again, that's not horrible, right? Higbee would probably be a top 12 tight end fantasy wise, with those numbers. But 17 games, those sprawled out over 17 games, that equals 11 yards per reception and 31 yards per game. That's fairly touchdown dependent, and you only have 5 touchdowns I'm giving to Higbee out of 17 games. That's a very touchdown dependent tight end. So, I know the league obviously is in need of having, because it has a lot of young talent, but we need to see the Irv Smiths of the world take that next step. And I just feel like Tyler Higbee, if he was on another team, he could have 1,000 yards. But this team, there's just not going to be the opportunities there. And plus, I have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp going over, I believe, 1,200 yards respectively. I have Woods over 13. I have Kupp over 12.
Okay.
So I think Van, especially with his route running, he's going to be a red zone target just because he can win off the line of scrimmage. You saw that last year against, I think it was Jamel Dean. He completely just put him in the dirt. And, I mean, Goff, kind of threw it behind him. He was still able to squeak in for the touchdown against Tampa. And then you saw against, the Packers again. They can isolate him and feel like they're comfortable with him being out there. And I think the thing that is lost on a lot of people is Van isn't going away. And just because they got Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson was playing in a playoff game, against, the Packers in the freezing cold at Lambeau. And him getting in the end zone in that game, him being utilized, being the next man up. I mean, he essentially, if Josh Reynolds had any chance of being re-signed, him dropping those passes and then having Van Jefferson on the other hand catching those same throws, it was huge, and I think it was him and it was Akers stepping up. And I think that's really why people, put such an emphasis on Akers. But I don't think they put enough emphasis on Van, because I think Van was just as important in that game to move the chains, to be in that game. And so I look at Van and I'm like, he's going late. Van, I've been able to get every single draft towards the end of the draft. To me, Van Jefferson has round 11 to round 13 value. In an 18 round league, like I'm not picking him in the 18th round. I'm probably going to have to get him a little earlier, but he's been falling. So I think he offers a lot of upside, especially in PPR. And just because I project him at, 44 receptions for 611 yards is not the end of the world. Those 10 touchdowns are huge when it comes down to it, because you're looking at 10 over the course of 17 games. And, I have him only behind really Robert Woods, who I have, catching 14 touchdown passes. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's the next man up. And then I think, Deshaun Jackson's going to be used in situational, he's going to be used situationally. I think he'll have 12 to 15 snaps a game, but I think he's going to use to soften up the defense. And I don't think Tutu Atwell in this climate fantasy like redrafts. I saw him go as high as 70. There's no way I'm drafting Tutu Atwell in a redraft league. There's just not a way.
No, I struggle even drafting like Van Jefferson. I can understand like if he's there late and you want to take him, throw a dart and hope it hits, I guess. I just I think there's gonna be too many mouths to feed when it comes to that third Rams wide receiver. I think Rams are going to use all of them pretty situationally. Van might be the leader there in terms of snap counts, but I wouldn't rule out Deshaun Jackson getting a heavy workload either. I mean, he has experience in McVay's system. He's a veteran guy. The Rams like their veterans. It's especially, like I said, it's a win now team. If Jackson can stay healthy, that would be amazing. The Rams would be getting very good value for what they paid Deshaun Jackson if he can stay healthy over 17 games. And then, I mean, you mentioned Tutu Atwell. I mean, that same speed and can make that switch. I don't see why it couldn't work.
Well, I'll say if he makes the switch, who's in trouble? I'd say Kenny Young is in trouble making this roster, because you have Christian Roseboom, a guy that they like a lot, and Jordan Rodriguez, friend of the show, has talked about, and obviously you really like, and I like, and then Micah Kaiser, who even Micah Kaiser to an extent, but he's actually, I don't know. He's started games. I think he's pretty safe as far as, probably on special teams at the worst. Traven Howard, if he gets hurt again, they might have to pull the plug. And, really that just leaves you with Ernest Jones and Troy Reeder. And Troy Reeder's a guy that's been Mr. Next Man Up. And Ernest Jones is your third round pick. So they're not going anywhere. So it really is interesting.
And Kenny Young, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I believe if they cut him, I think it saves him like $2.5 million or something like that.
Oh wow, yeah,
in cap space. So it would save them some cap money if they needed to sign a vet in the middle of the season or something. And I mean, it's kind of crazy to say, because I don't know if a lot of fans would agree with me, but I think the Rams are actually kind of deep at linebacker. It may not be
Oh, I do
proven
too,
depth,
actually.
but I think they're actually really deep at linebacker. And if a guy goes down or something, I think they have guys that can step up and play at or near the same level as the guy that goes down.
Well, and I thought that before Gervais, transferred to linebacker, but now it's like they seem really deep. And you know, I told you about this, and we talked about it. The KJ Wright thing. I wouldn't put anybody in there. I mean, just roll with what you have here because Kaiser has NFL starting experience. You have Troy Reader. Traven Howard is somebody that you really like, clearly, and he can do a little bit of everything. Kenny Young is starting experience. And then you have Ernest Jones, who you spent a third-round pick on. You really like Christian Roseboom. You keep telling us how much you like him. The last thing you want to do is go out and get, a veteran linebacker that, stifles his growth. And, to me, I just think, like you said, may not be proven, but they do have talent and they do have depth. And, it's honestly very similar to the Lions wide receiver group, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. Like, it may not be proven depth, but like they have depth over there. And it's like, I feel like, when you don't have like a star, in this day and age, it's like fans get on you about your lack of depth, but they don't like realize, like, I don't know, man, like Troy Reader being your third linebacker is pretty darn good. Micah Kaiser being your fourth or fifth linebacker is pretty darn good. Kenny Young might not even make the roster. That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess, like, just to put a fantasy spin on this, I think in the past, like last year, you would have had John Johnson if you're in an IDP league, like you're taking John Johnson because he's going to get all those tackles. Yeah. The year before, like if you didn't have Corey Littleton on your roster, I don't know what you were doing as a Rams fan. Like he was racking up the tackles. Like, are any of these linebackers one of those guys that you think can be a threat in an IDP league, or do you think like they just have too many options and they don't have that dominant guy like they had in Littleton? Do you think this is gonna fall on the safeties and maybe a guy like Jordan Fuller ends up getting similar numbers to a guy like John Johnson?
Great point. I think, Jordan Fuller's built similar to John Johnson, so I wouldn't be surprised if he has a 100 tackle season. That's not what I projected. I think I had him at around 80 tackles. Yep, I have him exactly at 80 tackles, 13 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, a forced fumble, and 2 fumble recoveries. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty well spread out. I have 85 tackles from Traven Howard, but the guy I have, really being the tackling machine is Ernest Jones. I have him getting 136 in his rookie year. And while that may seem like a lot, it's 17 games. So 136 really isn't a ton in 17 games. It's a good amount. It's not bad. But, I could definitely see him being that guy in the middle. The only thing with Ernest Jones, Blaine, and I did notice this on film, I'm sure I've told you this many times, he doesn't attack. He doesn't shoot gaps. Like he's the guy that makes tackles that come at him. He's not like a Roquan. He's not like a Devin Bush. Guys that will, penetrate the backfield and make plays, which are, ultra aggressive plays. And if they don't work out, it's the same as like, going for an interception and missing, and then you have your receiver with no safety help in the back. Like, it's not good. But a lot of those guys that do attempt that can actually stop, plays behind the line of scrimmage. Ernest, I found on film, really wasn't that guy. I don't know if that, kind of bothers you to a degree, but it does bother me to a degree. And I think that does kind of, it makes it so I think you do have to have a guy like, Traven Howard on the field at all times. Maybe it opens up the door for Gervais in kind of a rotational role, because I think you do want that ultra athlete, or at least close to ultra athlete, that can isn't afraid to get stick his face in the fan and make things happen and get into the backfield and cause chaos.
Yeah, Ernest Jones intrigues me. I mean, you know how much I liked him coming out, and I predicted, like, if in my piece before the draft that had those broke down the linebacker class and kind of which guys fit the Rams, Ernest Jones was on that list for me. So I did like him coming out. I am interested to see how much work he gets as a rookie. I like Micah Kaiser didn't play a lot as a rookie. It didn't happen. And maybe that has to do more with Kaiser's skill set. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this or he's going to add us on Twitter.
Oh God.
But I just the Rams have so many other options that I could see them work in Ernest Jones this year. And then when you have guys like Kaiser that hit free agency next year, that's when Jones makes his impact. But who knows? I mean, the Rams really like this guy. He was their number one, I think, graded leader. Like when it comes to leadership skills, I think Ernest Jones was their number one rated guy on their board. So
they had that intel with Thomas Brown too, because he coached there.
Yeah, so he intrigues me, but it's honestly like the linebackers are just so intriguing, just because there's so many names and so many guys, and the Rams have so many options they could go with. They could go with a couple different rotations. They can really do so much there that it's going to be something to watch during training camp and during the preseason.
Absolutely. And, the defensive line, I think, is also something that's going to be, something to watch. You want to see a guy like Bobby Brown really show, his ability. And you still have Greg Gaines, a guy that maybe might get a better role this year, but has really always had a back seat as a guy that they, traded up for in the 4th round to secure. And then, Sebastian Joseph Day, who is turned into just a very, very good player who's in a contract year. And then you have Ashawn Robinson, of course, Aaron Donald. So it's like, it's weird because I love Michael Brockers, love him. And I love what he meant to this team. But it almost like, how on earth would you be able to have Michael Brockers on this defensive line? Like, you would literally have 2 starting caliber guys on the bench, at least.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams defensive line is so deep. I don't know if it's one of the better defensive lines in football, like it was I think probably 4 years ago, but I think it's up there in terms of one of the more deep, one of the more deep groups. Because like you said, I mean, you have Aaron Donald, who just inexplicably ESPN did their players, coaches, and execs ranked defensive tackles, and one of them had Aaron Donald as the 4th best defensive tackle. It's like, dude, what are you watching? So
oh God,
yeah, I mean, you have Aaron Donald, who's the best defensive player in the league, on your defensive line, which automatically makes it really good. And then Ashawn Robinson didn't play a lot last year, but was a really solid player with the Lions, and I think shows what he can do this year now that he's going to be playing a full season. And then Sebastian Joseph Day, he's just I think a super underrated player. He reminds me a little bit of Morgan Fox, where people didn't really pay attention to him much early in his career. And then it's his second to last year in contract year, fans really started to love him and want Rams to bring him back, and he's just going to end up probably playing himself out of a contract that the Rams can give him. But I fully expect him to take a huge jump this year. He's that nose tackle that the Rams really need. He eats up space. He's a really good run defender. If he can develop pass rushing skills, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the middle of the defensive line. And then you have obviously Ernest Brown in there, and just a ton of guys. You mentioned Greg Gaines, who he's always been that depth piece, and I don't foresee him taking a ton of snaps from a guy like Sebastian Joseph Day on at nose tackle, but a guy to watch for sure. And yeah, this defensive line has me really excited. I saw another tweet today ranking the top 10 potential defenses this year, and the Rams weren't even on the list. This was a top defense this year or last year.
Let them sleep.
They're not even in the top 10 this year. Are you kidding me?
Let them sleep.
So yeah, I think this is a very talented group, and they're being overlooked. And when you have players, coaches, and execs ranking Aaron Donald as their 4th best defensive tackle, Aaron Donald has it hanging up in the weight room and is ready to just start eating quarterbacks for breakfast again.
Yeah. Well, Blaine, what it comes down to is I think a lot of these people that talk about the Rams, that aren't Rams fans or that don't watch every game, they're going based on Madden ratings and PFF and all that. I mean, the Rams notoriously don't grade well, for PFF as far as linebackers go. I mean, I don't think Corey Littleton graded well, even in his best seasons. So, I think, you look at for instance, Madden, there was not one season I don't think Corey Littleton hit the 80s. And clearly, I think he was an 84 overall at the very worst. But you have these linebackers that are in Madden right now, and it's Blaine, I don't think they have a linebacker that's in the 70s. So you have these people that are judging the Rams based on Madden and PFF, and it's like they're not doing their own evaluations. They're not watching the games like we are. And you can see that. So, obviously, if they're asked to rank all these defenses and they go on Madden and they're like, oh, well, their linebackers are horrid. And, oh, my God, like Michael Brockers was like a 79 overall, which is disrespect in my opinion. So, I mean, they looked at these guys in the past and they're like, oh, this defense isn't that good. And it's like there's more to it than that. And on top of that, I think literally the biggest need to me has really been that other edge spot, because they filled that this year. Was not expecting them to bring back Leonard Floyd. Was pleasantly surprised they brought back Leonard Floyd. Still swear to this day he was worth the money, and we will see. But I just love his ability, not only as him, developing as a pass rusher, but him as a run defender. They need another guy to solidify themselves as that guy, and that's what can propel this defense to, not only because I think they're a top 10 defense already, that can propel them into the top 5 and potentially maybe they get back to number 1. I don't know if I necessarily see that. That's a lot of pressure on this team, but I also don't think that they need to be number 1, because I think that they have a potential number 1 offense brewing. So really, Blaine, I don't know if you agree with me, but you look at Justin Hollins, you look at Terrell Lewis, Obanai Okoronkwo, Chris Garrett, Ernest Brown IV, and even guys like John Daka and the intriguing pass rusher UDFA out of Boston College, Maximilian Roberts, who I'm really keeping a close eye on. They have a huge competition going on there. We do not know for sure who's going to start. We have guys that have injury concerns. We have guys that are probably better suited to play inside backer than outside. And then we have guys that literally dominated D2 competition, but haven't played in a year, and they haven't seen NFL competition yet. So it's all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, like I definitely could see this defense taking a step back. I mean, but like I think like while losing Brandon Staley was huge, like the Rams hired Raheem Morris. It's not like they hired John Bonamego as their defensive coordinator. As their defensive coordinator, like they hired a proven guy that like has putting out some like the Atlanta Falcons defense was terrible last year, and he had that group playing really well. And I mean the Rams are losing. I mean, you're gonna feel the effect of losing John Johnson. You're gonna feel the effect of losing Michael Brockers. You're gonna feel the effect of losing a guy like Troy Hill. You're gonna feel those, but you have guys I think they can step up. And then moving to the edge position, like that's also where I'm like, who is going to step up? Because you have Leonard Floyd, and I like what he brings. You like what he brings. I think he's overlooked by a lot of analysts. I think Pro Football Network had him as rated as the Rams' most overrated player. And I know a lot of people just like don't think he's efficient enough, but like he put up numbers last year, and Aaron Donald creates a lot of those opportunities, but the Rams haven't had guys in the past that have been able to take advantage of those opportunities. It just hasn't happened. And Leonard Floyd did that last year, but I think you bring up a great point. Like, who is going to be on the opposite side of Leonard Floyd and step up? Terrell Lewis, I don't think it's him. He has his knee injury, and I think it's a lot worse than fans realize. I don't foresee him taking on a full-time role throughout a season. I think he's a situational guy. I think he'll always be a situational guy. I wouldn't be surprised if, by the time his rookie contract is up, if the Rams he's no longer on the Rams roster just because he's not able to stay healthy. It wouldn't surprise me. And then you have Justin Hollins, who has kind of gone back, like he was brought in to maybe be an inside linebacker, and he's back at edge. And, he was on this team because of Brandon Staley, and now you have Raheem Morris. So what's his future on the team? And then you have Okoronkwo, who like fans have been raving about this guy since he was drafted. And my thought process on Okoronkwo is, what have you done for me lately? And I'll tell you, Jake, it's not a lot. So
quit asking.
If it's his time to step up, it's now. I love Chris Garrett. Like he comes to the Division II level, but like he dominated. And my like whole like MO is like, if you're good, you're good. If you dominate at the FCS level, like a Trey Lance, like a Carson Wentz, like you're good. Like draft that guy in the first round. Who cares? So I like Chris Garrett. I think he's going to need some developing and some transition to the NFL. I don't foresee him being a year one type contributor, but down the line, like I really like his potential. And then you just have a bunch of other guys that I don't know if they're capable of stepping up. I mean, maybe it's Ernest Brown. You know, like the Rams kind of think he's going to be on that Morgan Fox type track and maybe get there faster than Morgan Fox did. So there's like he has potential, but yeah, it's a wide open competition there on the other side. And I am kind of disappointed that the Rams didn't kind of address the edge position a little earlier in the draft. I mean, it wasn't a great edge class, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. But yeah, it's somebody on the other side is going to step up. And is it Okoronkwo? Is it Lewis? I would kind of, because of Lewis's history, I would probably side with Okoronkwo a little bit. But like I said, he really hasn't taken advantage of his opportunities when he has had.
Well, it's weird because Hollins was a guy that I thought had immense potential as a pass rusher, and he's coming to the league and he's just developed a ton as a run defender and in coverage, which to me feels like he might be better suited to play inside linebacker, which made sense last year. But now the Rams are kind of like, whoa, we have a lot of depth here. It makes no sense to try to throw him in there and knock a guy like maybe a Gervais or, a Christian Roseboom out of the equation. But
yeah, and Jake, sorry to cut you off, but like we talked about this a couple weeks ago when I wrote a story about it, but like Justin Houston is just sitting there on his couch. This guy was like, he's out of his prime, but like you get him opportunities that Aaron Donald's going to get you. And I mean, maybe he's not an every down guy, but like at the same time, like he can be a consistent threat and a veteran presence on that other side. And not just that, but a proven guy, or Melvin Ingram's still available. Like there are edge guys in free agency that like I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe go after one of them once training camp kind of gets closer. But at the same time, like I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of stick with what they have.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and it's there's Houston's there, Melvin Ingram's there. I mean, you look at the cornerback position. My guy Brian Poole's available. I mean, there's some choice veterans that shouldn't be available that are, and I'd honestly make the argument, who's an interesting linebacker who's available if they did want to go that route. Everyone's talking about KJ Wright, but like they're not talking about the fact that just because he's available does not mean he's going to take a veteran minimum deal. But a guy that could be cheap if they did want to go that route would be Josh Bynes, who really has done a nice job wherever he's gone. He's produced. So if you want to do that, I would go after Bynes, but I really wouldn't worry about, going after linebacker. I would look at corner. I think to me, this is it for David Long. And I think that this is what they're saying, is that by them not going out and getting a true nickel to compete with Long, this is literally it for him.
Yeah, I agree. It's it for him, and just like go back to Justin Houston really fast. Yeah. He had 8 sacks last year and 11 sacks the year before. So this is a guy that can still produce. I would love if the Rams didn't got him. I think he's a name that he's a guy that they should at least give a call and see what he's thinking. But yeah, I mean to go to your corner point, yeah, I think that this is it for David Long. They are saying it's now or never for you. We drafted you 3 years ago and. It was his time last year when the Rams had Jalen Ramsey and Troy Hill, and instead it was Darius Williams that stepped up as that third corner. Like this is it for him, and it's going to be between him and Terrell Burgess, I think, in the slot, and it's going to be the best man that wins. And I think Burgess is more suited for the slot, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's him that comes in as that third safety and plays down inside there in the slot, but. Yeah, this is it for David Long, and he really hasn't shown a lot. And if he doesn't do anything this year, he's most likely done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I still can't believe those guys are available. But, Blaine, it does make sense because it's like, hey, I'm a veteran. I'm at the end of my career. Why the hell am I going to sign and go to OTAs and get a non-contact injury and be the end of my career right then and there? Like, it does make sense. And I don't remember exactly when Nickel Roby-Coleman signed with the Rams the first time. You can let me know if you do know that. But that was like the best deal ever. Like they got a top 5 nickel corner, top 3, maybe even the best nickel corner at one point or another, for essentially the veteran minimum. And then they ended up bringing him back on an extension.
Yeah, I mean, if you could do that with like a Brian Poole, like I think that's great. Or if you can do that with like, geez, I don't know if Justin Houston's coming in on a veteran minimum deal. I would think he would need a little bit more motivation. But if you could get him on a cheaper veteran deal, like that would be great. Yeah, I think you are going to start to see some names kind of pop off the list here as free agency goes, because like you said, Justin Houston doesn't need to be in there, and in May getting a non-contact injury that basically ends his career when he's kind of looking to maybe get a Super Bowl at this
basically
point.
That would make me mad, Blaine. Like
yeah.
So let's wrap it up here. We've been really hammering it out. I mean, that's pretty much what we normally do. But I'm going to give you 3 names, and you're going to have to tell me, you're going to have to rank them in order IDP, okay? All right. They're going to be Rams, of course, because it's a Rams podcast. But, all right, let's start off. First name, Travin Howard. Second name, Taylor Rapp. Third name, Terrell Burgess. Who's scoring the most, and the second most, and then the least?
That's tough. That is really tough.
They're kind of similar, right? They both have, that defensive back in them, but then they kind of have that linebacker in them. So,
yeah, I might go. I think the Rams are very disappointed when Travin Howard got hurt last year. I think he was a guy they were really excited about. So if he's healthy, I might rank him first, and then below him, I might go Terrell Burgess. I think he's a lot better in coverage than Taylor Rapp is. Yeah. I think he's going to see the field a lot more, and therefore, like maybe get some pass breakups. He'll likely be playing down in the slot, so he's going to be near the line of scrimmage. So I like him. And then this isn't a knock on Taylor Rapp. I think he's a one-dimensional player. That he's a box safety. He needs to be near the line of scrimmage. He can't really play up high. I don't think he's good enough in coverage to. I think he's a liability in that area. So if Rams can get him in spots down low, and where his strength is, like he's a good player, but outside of that, I think he's a liability. So I might rank him third, but that's not a knock on Taylor Rapp, because when the Rams put him in a position to succeed, he has made plays in the past, and I do expect him being the veteran of that safety room to take an unexpected jump maybe this year.
Now, what if they used him like Jamal Adams, where they just tried to just blitz him? I think that would honestly be interesting too. Adams had
that would be super interesting. Like, yeah, I would love to see that. But I think like the reason you can do it with Jamal Adams is because Jamal Adams has that threat to also drop back, and so the quarterback might not necessarily be expecting it. Whereas like Taylor Rapp, like if he's dropping back, you're beating him, and you're getting rid of the ball before if he was blitzing, you're getting rid of the ball before you would even get there. So.
I think,
yeah, that's the difference there. But if he develops in coverage, though, like I would love to see it.
Yeah, and I think like Burgess could be used that way as well. Last question here, and then we'll head out of here. Is Jamal Adams a defensive end or a safety?
He is a safety.
Okay, all right. I mean, the 9 sacks is pretty fun to watch last year. I'm not gonna lie,
that is crazy. That is almost, but not quite as impressive as Marlon Humphrey's 8 forced fumbles.
Oh my God, the king. My favorite non-Ram right now. Anything he says is gold. Yes. That's going to do it for us. Hey, Blaine, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been the Downtown Rams podcast. It's been episode 360, and we did go a full 360 going back to the OG squad. You can follow Blaine at bgrisakdtr. He is the man in charge over at downtownrams.com. So we're going to have plenty of stuff for you. Blaine's got plenty of stuff prepared for you. You can follow me at JK Bogan, and you can follow or subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Jake Allen Bogan. Just literally my name. Type it in. You'll see it. But that's going to do it for us. You guys take care, and I'll be back soon probably with Alexis. If not, you will probably see Blaine again. So you guys take care and enjoy your week. Later.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DTR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and make sure to use code DTR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.